Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Tonight, I have a special guest. We talk about resilience, and first of all, my show is always addressing millennials to start off with. We are speaking specifically with millennials and entrepreneurs about their journey, and it's about a journey of resilience. Resilience. We've had some great guests so far, but tonight's guest, a special man, a special person that's gone through some challenging, some difficult times. And through all that, he persevered and now has turned out to be a great human being. He has a child, and he's going to tell us all about his story. But before I even do that, let's welcome him. Welcome, Michael Laidley. How you doing, Michael?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you so much for coming on. So we're just going to jump right in. I'm going to bring on, just have you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then what we'll do is we'll break it down and talk a little bit about your journey. How's that sound?
Yeah, absolutely. That's good.
Okay, so tell us about a little bit about you, what you're doing now, and let's go from there.
Well, yeah, as you know, my name is Michael Laidley, and right now I actually run a nonprofit organization. The organization is called 29 Roots Youth Employment Services, and the initial approach for this particular organization is to kind of cater employability skill platforms for youth who are facing barriers to employment. Growing up in different neighborhoods, I found that employment was pretty hard to obtain, especially adequate employment with good pay and benefits and etc. So, you know, from my own personal experiences, I decided to create a system with a group of other individuals that could help those youth transition from their youth to their adolescence.
Right. That's awesome. So, you know, before all that, you know, you had an interesting life.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get into that a little bit, and then we can kind of dig in and see how we can further help some people.
Yeah.
So let's start right from the beginning. Where are you from? Where you live? You know, tell us a little bit about that.
So I grew up in the west end of Toronto, primarily a neighborhood called Neptune. It was right behind Yorkdale Mall, Bathurst and Wilson. That neighborhood kind of, you know, it was a rough neighborhood. You know what I mean? In terms of the individuals that was growing up there, you know, there's a lot of stigmas, you know, a lot of violence, a lot of drugs. You know, it was very tough. Primarily when I was living there, I was about, I would say close to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 was my Neptune days. And the things that I saw as a young guy growing up, it was pretty traumatic. You know, sometimes I still think about those things to this day.
Right.
But you know, kind of molded me and, you know, shaped me in that various stage moving forward into my life. From 14, I ended up into another neighborhood called Jungle. And
Right.
So between Neptune and Jungle, I would have to say it was like, you know, the belly of the beast experience for me, you know, and there were certain things that were going on at that time too, that were, I would say, you know, you had to be careful. You had to really understand what was going on, and you had to really kind of know yourself and put yourself in a position where, you know, if something happened, you know, there are certain ways you got to go about it, you know, and so that's how I grew up. You know, I grew up around most of the bosses, most of the OGs that kind of created the foundations for what urban culture is right now in Toronto. So
Right. So I know we talked a little bit earlier or yesterday, and we got into a little bit about your earlier life when you were, you know, about 14, 15, and the kind of things, you know, you did describe a little bit of kind of things that you saw. And you said there were things that were easily accessible to you, you know, drugs, those kind of things. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Well, as I said to you guys before, like it was like, honestly, like thinking about it, it was crazy because it was all over. And like, I remember holding guns just for the sake of, like, I wasn't even like robbing anybody. It was just, there was just so many in our community that everybody had one. And, you know, I was young, as I said, like between 16 and 15. At those times, you know, you're usually like trying to, you know, you're in a family where they're supposed to, you know, you're in your backyard playing. Like, we're like on the stoop smoking weed, and you know, so it was just a crazy time. And even the, you know, the drugs, like, I don't know about now, but back then, cess and marijuana was a big thing. And you know, there were people that were bringing it in, but it was accessible. Like, I remember times where, you know, we're like breaking it out of a bag
Right.
and really just like, you know, like usually people, like guys would buy a Deagle, right? Like, we had so much of it that we were like breaking it out of Ziploc bags and just, so, and those things were, you know, you don't want to be a young guy doing those things or experiencing those things. So it was definitely, I look back at it now, and it's something that is pretty traumatic.
Yeah, I know when I was growing up, I certainly had some, you know, some influence, and those kind of things, maybe perhaps in our neighborhoods. But you know, you have role models, and you also have people that may rescue a little bit. For me, it was sports. We were all in sports. We jumped into that and kind of made that our adopted family, and it kind of brings you and guides you. And also, you know, the your parents and how much they're involved. So I know you were in a home single mom,
Yeah.
and you know you had two siblings, right? So, and you know, we did discuss about your mom's failing health and that kind of. How did that affect you? I mean, how did that kind of affect how you dealt with things as you grow older?
Well, yeah, yeah, like it was a turning point for me because I was forced to experience responsibilities
Hmm.
at an early age, and you know, like cleaning the house a certain way. You know, she got blind, and she wasn't able to really cook dinners the way how a regular mother could cook for their kids. So I had to help her with that and learn how to cook myself. I remember some of the times where I would have to go to the grocery store and buy the groceries for my family. Like, I would write down the list, and she would tell me certain spices to get that would make a Caribbean dish because
Right.
she couldn't see. So I would help her with that, and that's how I knew how to make palau, oxtail, and those type of things. But
Oh,
yeah, pardon?
I say you could lick a pot.
Yeah. I can do a pot still. I have a nice hand. So, and that came from those experiences, like, you know, just making sure we had stuff to eat, and that's why also I kind of gravitate to working and employment because you know, at one point it got kind of so bad that yeah, I had to find a job, you know what I mean, and try to take care of myself and take care of my sister as well. And so there weren't really too many negative impacts. You know, I was kind of upset at the fact that my mom was sick, but you know, I just took it for what it was, and I tried to just continue to do what I had to do.
Right. So, you know, your mom got sick. You're about 15, 16, and you're into sports. I think you had told me that you were playing basketball
Yeah,
and became pretty good.
yeah,
But then the street life got hold of you a little bit.
yeah,
And it kind of had helped, you know, you made some decisions that were some questionable decisions at that point.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that and the kind of things that you got into.
Well, so I'll tell a story that I never told anyone. So after basketball, kind of like I was getting pretty good, and you know, it was competitive too. We were playing AAA division, so we were playing Westview, Emory, um, Boylan, Jeffries, a couple other schools, and then when we tried to go to OFSA, we played York Memorial and other schools. But after that, that kind of took its turn. Just the summers is what really got me because, there's nothing else to do. I'm not training, and I'm pretty much on the block with the man them. You know what I mean? I'm just doing my thing. And summers in Toronto, I don't know about now because I'm not really, but back then, you know what I mean? It wasn't that hard to really just click up with people and do what they were doing. So, I started to follow the trends. And, I started smoking a lot more weed. And one time what happened was, we just decided to, get together and go do a move on a store. And this is kind of like the first time I kind of realized that, or not the first time, but this is when I realized that I'm on the other side now. I'm not a high school kid playing basketball. I'm actually on the streets just chilling with a whole bunch of niggas, and this is what we do. Right. And I remember when we mapped out a plan on how to get this, and those are some of the things we were doing during summer. Just mapping out ways and how to really eat food and get money in our pockets. And so that's kind of the lifestyle that kind of started to take its course. Right. During that summer. I'd say it was 2006, which we call the year of the gun. Right. I don't know if you know that term, but it was pretty bad, man. It was bad.
Right. So at that time you were with some pretty heavy shakers. You were involved with guys that were slinging and doing those kind of things and I recall you telling me that you're in some dark spaces. You were feeling like your life was running out of control.
Yeah, and like as I said, like looking back at it, like honestly, you don't want to be living like that at that age. You know what I mean? Like I feel like most of the young professionals that I've come across in my young adult stage, they haven't experienced the things that I've experienced. They were more prepped into, getting ready for university and doing other things that were prepping them for their future. I felt like, those whole summers I was just in the hood, there was a lot of things that I kind of missed. And then I had to like develop those at a later date, right? And so that dark place was like just not having no direction and not really understanding what I have to get ready for. Like I didn't understand my call either at that time, but it was pretty depressing. You know what I mean? It felt cool, right, but it was depressing though. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So now you got involved with some people, and you dropped out of school, right? So you dropped out of school. Your mom is ill at this point, still ill, and you're trying to make a life for yourself without much of a direction. But then, there are people that maybe some of us may question that. Hey, don't hang out with those people. But that's where you gravitated because it provided you some kind of safe haven, right? Yeah. And you told me about someone that kind of took you under their wings, showed you that life, but taught you some life lessons. Give us a little bit of that.
Yeah. So his name was Leroy Dredd, and that was my friend's uncle, and he was a boss still. Like he was a boss. Like at that time, it was Leroy Dredd, G Mitch. I don't want to mention some other names, but like there were like some older guys that were kind of like really just controlling the scene in Toronto, in different hoods too. Right. And he was kind of one of the guys that kind of really, he would sit me down. And I remember the conversations we used to have. He used to talk about some of the stuff he experienced in Jamaica, being part of a mafia called Black Roses, which I'm not born in Jamaica. Right. But he used to tell me about this gang in Jamaica and what type of codes they would live by and what type of things would happen if you break these codes. And, one of the positive notes I really got from him you know, he never was really about promoting violence. He always wanted individuals to be like, have money. Like, you know, if you're working, make sure you save money. You know, if you're selling drugs, make sure you save money. So he was always really like trying to get me to just be on my feet. He noticed that me and his nephew at the time, his name is Dante, where we used to really like chill every day. He noticed that like we were like that type of group. It was me, Dante, Philly D, a bunch of other kids that we used to chill with. And yeah, he just really kind of gravitated to us on that level, being that big, taking on that father role. You know, we had a lot of conversations.
Okay. So you're in that life, and you know you're starting to provide a life for yourself, and you're growing a little bit older. No school, no responsibilities, but he taught you something. He taught you how to start to look ahead more for a future. And yeah, you were telling me about your knack for finances and how he kind of
Yeah,
used that life to kind of equate it
yeah, yeah.
right to what we would call a normal life. But tell us a little bit about that and
Well,
how you kind
yeah.
of
So the way how it went down usually was okay. So I don't really want to get too much into the processing, but actually learning how to cut down certain things, it takes a set of skill sets.
right.
And he was definitely one of the guys that kind of like he was intelligent in terms of just his. I don't want to say anything, but just the distribution and just the way how everything was structured. It kind of looked from the outside that it was like a company that he was running,
Right.
and you know, really kind of understanding the management skills that came with that, the time management, and also, you know, understanding the dollar value of certain things. And those are the kind of things that we were learning, like just on the porch. You go there, like there's a certain spot you go to kind of, you know, and yeah, it was like I would literally be in the house, like literally be in the house, sitting down there, and I'm just watching this process. And it's crazy because like it's a real thing, you know, in terms of like, yo, it's not like I look at back at it like it was a movie because these guys have like, you know, like I don't, you know, like so it was crazy, but yeah, you know, like all those skill sets that I mentioned, which is time management, dollar value, distribution, leadership, um, integrity, moral integrity, like even setting up meetings where, you know, um, other people in different areas would come and respect the household. Like you wouldn't be disrespected. They would, you know, take their shoes off and have normal conversation. This is what I used to see, you know, and it was pretty. That's what it kind of put me in a position where I want to be a boss. And probably not in that angle, but yeah, it always resonated to me. I want to be that guy that people come to and check.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So now, it's just fascinating to listen to, you know, because sometimes people have a different perspective in terms of what that kind of life it is. We're not by any means are you glamorizing the life. You're telling the truth about how the life is. But we also understand that these men aren't stupid. These men
Oh,
these men have the skills, leadership skills, and some of the other skills that it takes to survive in those streets. You know, even though their choices may not have been the ideal ones. So, you know, I appreciate you putting that a little bit of light on that so people can understand. Um, so going back a little bit more on your story. So, you know, you're living that life. What age are you now? You're 18, 17,
yeah,
18?
so at this point, I'm like 18, 19, getting into my early 20s.
Right. Into your early 20s and still haven't gone back to school, correct?
No, I didn't touch school. I didn't go back until probably 25, 26. So it was like a good gap. I was just chilling in the hood.
Okay. All right.
Mm.
and that life became a little bit glamorous at one point, right? Because
Yeah, it got real. It started to get kind of cool because we were driving cars. Like it got cool. It got cool. It got cool in terms of I remember when the 745 BMW just came out.
right.
Wow, we were whipping that, in and out of the hoods, going to clubs with that. When the Pacifica came out, we were driving that, and so it was those experiences for me were cool, and even like going in the club for free,
Right.
knowing that you're with certain affiliates, you know what I mean, and you're just going in there. Like I remember, I never used to wait in line. I remember when Steam and Phoenix at that time, they were like kind of bubbling, and I was young. We used to just go in there, and people knew us because of what we were doing,
Right.
and we just walk in there, and that felt good. It felt good to just even go into different neighborhoods and people kind of knowing, oh yo, yeah, that's Shadi's, I had my own little crew where people knew that we were also into business as well. We had a company back then called there was a company called Too Young Entertainment, which was founded by Dante, and he's kind of one of the guys that kind of gave me, and Philly D2 kind of gave me the skill sets to really understand how to do business as well.
Right.
And so yeah, it was a cool time,
Yeah. So, okay. So you're approaching adulthood. Things are starting to change a little bit.
Yeah.
You're starting to question the life, whether or not that's where you want to go. The one thing I love about what I've heard and what I've listened to you is, there's a sense of optimism in there. There's never a sense of quit in there. A lot of people would have just resignated themselves to saying, look, this is how I am, this is who I am, and just left it at that. But you fought through that. What was it real turning point? I mean, when did it get to either the lowest low when you say, look, I can't handle this, or it was the extreme high of it that made you realize that, look, the only way I'm going to get out of this is in the wrong direction. So when was that turning point for you?
Well, yeah. So basically, when, as I said, like I got into a situation where it was either I had to defend myself in a way where you either drop this guy or, he drops you. And yeah, I got to the point where like I made a conscious decision, because there were many times in my life where I would have to be put in predicaments where I'm like, yo, I'm gonna have to kill this guy, or this is a direction, because that's the environment. Like even right now, like you see Houdini and all these guys getting draped down, right? It's because guys in their head are making a decision, and before you go in, right, you gotta make a decision. You gotta say in your mind, okay, well, I'm either gonna kill this guy or I'm not gonna kill this guy. And so for me personally, yeah, I just didn't want to become a murderer. And like, it was cool to be around people that are cool and swaggy, but then when it got to like serious violence, I kind of made that conscious decision. I remember when we were in a house that was being used to sell drugs, and I remember having a conversation with somebody, and this particular person starts talking about Jesus while we're high. And honestly, like at that point, like I don't know nothing about none of this stuff. So he just goes in, and like everyone like, you got a man cooking in there, and he's looking at this guy like, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? I have like a blunt to my face, there's like machines and things on the table, and this guy all of a sudden just starts talking about God, and the way how he did it too was crazy, because it really got in there, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it really got in there. So after the conversation, you know, probably like a month or two, whatever, this same person also is already going to a church that I don't know about.
Right.
And he invites me to the church. And yeah, long story short, you know, it kind of just, you know, that's when you know, I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And that was the turning point for me. You know, a lot of the stuff that were really cool and I normalized in my life just started to kind of like wither away when I accepted Jesus as my Lord and personal Savior. So that was the turning point for me.
Now, I don't know how much of this to discuss, but I know you had a younger brother
Yeah.
that was involved in the life and something happened to him. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So pretty much, this is a crazy story. I think even Kenny, you know Kenny, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, he knows the story too. So pretty much what happened was, you know, so Milton, Michael, and Myron, they grew up in Malvern in the east side, right? I grew up in the west side.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know I had brothers out there in the east. And the whole time I was playing for Hurricanes and all that other stuff, I didn't even know that they were right across the street at Washburn there. I didn't know that. But one day what happened is that I got a job at No Frills. You know the No Frills down by Malvern Mall there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I used to work night crew there. And then one time, Michael, because we have the same name, so it's Michael Laidley. We have the same first and last name. So him and four other guys, right? We're working, and the manager calls our name, and then he calls the last name. And so Michael comes up to me, he's like, "Yo, why do you have the same last name as me?" And then I'm like, "Yo, why do you have the same first name as me?" So yo, hear this now. The man asks me for my birth certificate. See? Yeah, asks me for my birth certificate. See, so I was like, all right. And ironically, I had it in my wallet. So I'm like, oh, here, this is my name. So then he's like, yo, what's your dad's name? And then two twos, I'm like, yo, my dad's name is Harold. Yo, this nigga's face dropped. Yo, bro, this nigga's face dropped. And then I'm catching a 1-2. I'm like, yo, this is hectic. So two twos now at break, this guy cuts to his house, tells his mom everything, and then he brings back a picture of my dad. And he's like, yo, this is your dad, bro. And that's how we connected.
You're kidding.
That's how it went down, bro. That's how it went down. Yo, you know what the funny thing is that, one time this guy dropped 50 points in a high school basketball game, and his name was mentioned in the paper. And I remember one time I had practice for Hurricanes. I'm like, yo, you dropped 50? I was like, what? Nah, I didn't drop 50. And they're like, yeah, bro, you're in the paper, you dropped 50. I was just like, nah, bro, that's what I mean. And I remember that day too, and I was just like, yo, how come everyone thinks I dropped 50 points in a game when I didn't drop 50? So, but he was a good basketball player.
Yeah.
And he had his own thing going on. Malvern people loved him. When he passed away, like when it happened, I think it was a situation where something transpired with some gang members, and I'm not too sure. I don't want to speak on the specifics, but yeah, they ended up kind of rolling to his house. When he opened the door, they clapped him like 3 times in his head, and the thing was probably like a day after, like just to see all the community members and everyone that was in kind of shock. Like the whole community was sad. Like he had the entire community, which I didn't know, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. And so it was a short experience, kind of.
So you never had a relationship with him at all. So there was that chance meeting, and you discovered that you had the same dad.
Yeah.
And what happened as a result? Was that a lot?
I went over there a couple times. Like we talked a couple times, and we were doing. I tried to mingle with Myron and Milton and Michael.
Mhm.
But it was short. It was short. As soon as he died, we kind of just split up. You know, everyone was, you know,
Right.
even the mom, she started acting different. So
Yeah, how far apart were you guys in terms of
I
age?
think I'm about 5 years apart,
Okay.
4 years apart.
So this man just give you guys both the same name?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what was going on with that. And, you know, so it is what it
That's
is.
George Foreman.
Yeah,
All his kids George.
yeah. So that's pretty much how it went down. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah, and I'm that's a shame that, potentially who knows what that relationship could have evolved to, and you've lost someone that could maybe have been an integral part of your life growing up. So,
yeah. And
yeah.
honestly, I felt like if we were one family, we would have been dangerous. We would have been dangerous. So.
Yeah.
mm.
Oh, Kenny just typed in. Gave you a
Yeah,
shout out.
I know, because he knows, he
Yeah.
knows. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's move on a little bit now. So you obviously matured, and you got yourself in some trouble.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that, or you want to skip?
Yeah. So basically, what happened was when I was part of. So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I went to a behavior school which was called Jury, and that was at Finch and Young. And I got admitted into that school because I threw a chair at my principal in middle school. So, you know, they started writing reports about me and all this type of stuff. And I ended up at a behavioral school. And, you know, I was like kind of getting myself introduced to other people who were in the same situation as me or even worse. And they were all over they were coming in from the East and the West. So there were a lot of people that were like really gang affiliated in this school. And, I started making connections. And I kind of me and a couple of people formulated a crew, and we started wearing red flags. And this was the only reason why I kind of emulated that module or that lifestyle was because when I was living in Neptune, a lot of these guys were wearing red flags. Even in Jungle, I don't know if you've ever heard of a clique called Red Rum, but basically red was the thing in the West, right? A lot of the areas in the West were like wearing red flags. And so as I said, when I was seeing these things, I would just emulate it because that's where I was coming from. So when I had a bunch of my own peoples, we started wearing red flags, and we were like considering ourselves Bloods, even if it wasn't really an American gang culture from LA or whatever, rightfully that was us. And so one day, we were like, okay, you know what we're going to do to initiate this clique? We're going to go rob a store. And so, we actually ended up robbing a convenience store and beat the hell out of a lady. And money got took, candies, everything. It was about like 7 of us. And I think the division that did the investigation, I'm not too sure, it was 31 or 41. I'm not too sure. I think it was 31. And so what happened is they caught all of us on camera, and what they did was they went to each school in the area. And one day I'm coming to school and I hear my name, Michael Lately, come to the office, right? So I go down to the office, and I walk into this room and I see like 4 officers with my case counselor and the principal at the time. So they sit me down, and then they're like, "Oh well, we're investigating a robbery that happened couple days back, and you kind of fit the description." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Me personally, I don't know what you're talking about." She's like, "Yeah, you don't know what you don't know what we're talking about?" She's like, "All right." So she puts in, at the time they had VCR, she put in the tape scene, and she played the tape in front of me, and she's like, is that you? She's like, is that you? And I'm just like, nah, I don't think that's me. I think that's somebody else. And the whole time I was trying to kind of make it seem like, I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
So I got arrested that day. Also with probably 7 or 8 other individuals that day. I'd even go home.
Right.
I got arrested, I think, school usually ends at like 4. Yeah, I got arrested at like 2:00. So I'm in the back of a cruiser, and you got there was like CTV, everything, because they're escorting kids from high school,
Right.
or out of in handcuffs or whatever the case may be. So yeah, so I get processed, and the whole time I'm trying to get bail, my mom is trying to bail me out. It took about 4.5 months to get me out of jail, and it was while I was in there, that's when I kind of realized that, it was, there I went to jail after that, but this was the experience I kind of probably did the longest time, which was like 4 months,
Right.
4 or 5 months.
Right.
So that's how I ended up in there.
Right. And and then you come out and you've changed your life.
Yeah, like as I said, I went back in there. I think the turning point for me was, and so that particular situation kind of transpired like during my entire mess. But I say the turning point for me was when I started going to church. And once I started going to church and doing all those things, that's when I started to develop myself a little differently.
Right. Okay. All right. Solid. Okay. So now, what would you say to? There are a lot of kids now that they have the choices, right?
Yeah.
So they approach a situation where they have to make a decision, and we also have a lot of kids. Not even kids. We have adults who are going through things, and what the things that you've gone through, certainly by what they may be going through, may be pale in comparison, but I think we weigh our own situation as we can handle them. What do you say to people who are forced with these difficult choices, and if you can, what's the first thing they have to do what steps can they make to kind of eat that big elephant that they're so intimidated by, which is change? How do they do that? What would be your advice?
It's a tough question because there are some components that are not in our control. But what I would say, right, is just humanistically speaking, I feel that there's gotta be some toughness within you, number one, to really kind of get over that hump. And the hump is stigma and marginalization. Like when we come from those environments, we don't necessarily have the tools and the skill sets that we should have in order to make proper decisions. So you're going to have to be, and that you may be outsourced and you may not be adequately developed to the right standard in order to make the proper decisions. And honestly, it was tough for me. It broke me down because I realized that there are things that I'm missing. Outside of my mask, which I told you about, I felt like being swagged, having Jordans, having a whole bunch of name brand clothes and being around a whole bunch of mans was kind of like, those are my comfortabilities. Now when you strip those away and you're by yourself and you have to make critical decisions about your own life, financial independency, buying a house, or even creating a family, a positive family, you have to kind of dig within yourself. So my first kind of step and advice for young children would be to really have some toughness and gain some tenacity to really look within yourself and make some plans to create change. That would be my number one advice for kids.
Right. So in other words, they have to really look in the mirror and evaluate themselves, evaluate their strengths, weaknesses, evaluate what's missing, and perhaps ask for help if they need it.
Yeah, even ask for help too. And I know in our community, we don't really do that, but healthy relationships and positive people who have a sound mind would be that's a plus If you're able to kind of have individuals, you know, like let's go rob a man, or let's go eat a food, or you know what I mean? That's contaminating you know, your positive psyche that could actually create new ways for you to get better. If you have someone that's opening your mind and really pushing you to do better and look for better, you know, those are the people you cherish the most, and that's gonna help you too to kind of look in the mirror within yourself.
Right. But you approached the dread. The dread was the one that kind of, but his choices weren't always the best ones. So what do you do when, you know, obviously he's still a role model, maybe not the right one. How do the kids make the choices? How do they kind of direct themselves outside of that? And if you were talking to parents today, if you were talking to parents that have, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and, you know, having some issues, difficult times with them, how would you advise those parents? Not so much the kids, but what do you advise the parents in terms of helping them find their direction?
So for parents, it's difficult because a lot of, like, if you put in a format where you're talking about single parent mothers that are raising boys, you know, it's a little bit different, because I feel like there's going to be some level of frustration regardless, because, you know, boys that turn into men, that transition can't be done by a mother on her own. Right. So, you know, there's going to be some frustration there. And my advice to single parent mothers who are raising young boys, like, it's easier to raise young girls. There's sort of a relationship through gender. But my advice to raising young boys is to really take time. You know, a lot of the young boys start out very, I'm going to use the word dysfunctional. You know what I mean? Maybe their education process may be a little under par too as well in the beginning.
Right.
And, you know, it's the most you can do as a single parent mother is to continue to love and support your son or your daughter in a nutrient way. I don't think beating the hell out of them is going to work all the time. It does work sometimes. You got to really assess what you're doing, but, you know, and I don't think kicking them out of the house is something that is going to be something that should be done either. I think supporting them and just being patient. And if you are someone that prays, if you have the mindset to pray, you know, you also do that too as well. And yeah, that's what I would say for the parents, and for the kids who are like, you know, probably they don't have it figured out. Maybe you know, they're still back and forth or whatever. I would say at that present time, be true to yourself.
Right.
Don't really, because honestly, 16, 17, you know, 15, you're still in a transitional phase, and things are going to happen organically, and you're going to actually change organically as well. Right. So you want to be gentle to yourself. Don't hurt yourself. Don't speak negative upon yourself. You know what I mean? And try to really, really, really just focus on the brighter side of things. Like, honestly, I grew up messed up. You know, if you would have told me I would have been here right now in this mind frame, trying to run this company, yeah, you couldn't tell me that.
Yeah, that's great advice, man. Thank you so much. You know, it's Bruce Lee that said, "Don't talk negative of yourself, because your body don't know the difference." Whether that's you or talking to somebody else. So, you know, I am really happy to have you tonight. I thank you so much for imparting some of your knowledge, some of your experience. You know, and I'm hoping if there's somebody listening tonight that needs some kind of direction, needs some kind of help, that they reach out and get it. You know, you can certainly always welcome to join us or type in your questions. We can help to provide any kind of direction in terms of support that you may desire. Parents, listen to this man here. He's gone through some tough things and came out on the other end. He's the CEO of 29 Roots Youth Employment Services. Brilliant. You're giving back to your community. You're helping by just sharing your story and not being afraid to stand in front of your truth about your weaknesses and your strengths. Thank you again very much, and continued success.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Anything else that you want to add, or anything else that you want to say to our audience tonight? Look
out for the 29 Roots Youth Employment Service initiative. We have some projects coming out, programs, group events. So just look out for our initiative. And everyone, God bless and stay healthy, and that's it.
Okay. A user has a question. One of our guests, what's her name? Shania Brittany Smith. She asked, Michael, what was the point that made you want to establish something greater in life?
So, that's a good question, honestly.
Did it have something to do with your youth? Your
I always had that mindset. I always wanted to do things, even if it was doing it, in a bad way, a negative way. I always wanted to do things on a big scale. I always think big, right? But pertaining to 29 Roots, it was just, I don't think it was my idea, really. And, I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, but, I think for the most part, it just kind of just fell in my lap, and I started to understand that, okay, this is something that needs to happen. And, so that's kind of what I've been doing. I don't know if that answers the question, but
I think what her question was, while you did clarify that you always had a thought and knowledge for bigger things. I mean, did something in your life, like when we talked, you said, your son was a good sense of inspiration. I think
yes,
for you to kind of make some of those steps.
Yeah, my son definitely, if you put that in the picture, that kind of, it really put me in a space where I was like, okay, you have to have a solid foundation, right? And so when I look at Malik, I do see my mind going into a place is, okay, where are you going to be when he's 16? And what type of resources are you going to have when he's that age to help him get over his hump, right? What type of connections and financial supports and etc. So it really kind of puts me in a space where those decisions have to be made. So my son is definitely one of them too as well. But in my youth, I would say I wasn't really looking at, I just always thought big. I always thought, I had multiple companies before I had 29 Roots Youth Services. I had Entourage 06. We had a fashion line. I was always business minded from a young age. And I think I got that from Leroy, really looking at what he was doing and how he was able to kind of make his money and do his thing, honestly.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And keep that entrepreneurial spirit. So those guys that want to be an entrepreneur now, what do you say to them?
Honestly, I'd say just continue to grind it out, and you're gonna have to really dig deep, and stick with it. If you have a plan, and you're gonna have to find ways to strategize it to a point where it kind of can turn into a manifestation. If it's in its conceptual idea, right, you're gonna have to develop some strategies to really come to fruition, and really kind of put yourself in a position where you can explain this idea to people, and also manage it as well. And look around your life, because your environment is going to play a part in your entrepreneurial skill sets. You're gonna, where you live, who you talk to, what type of audio you're listening to. All of those things play a huge factor in critical decision making. And you're gonna have to understand how to make executive decisions. So really kind of understanding what that is for yourself, and once you kind of figure out those basic steps, you're in a position to really kind of own your own company, your own system, and no one can boss you around, and no one can dictate how you function, because you've mastered the basic principles.
You're absolutely right. I know as an entrepreneur, we do have challenges, and first of all, going in with a plan is so important. But to some of the parents that there are young people now that are going around trying to start a business, and in some cases they're being encouraged, but in some cases they're not. They're being discouraged. I think those kind of skill sets that they're going to learn by is so important. Even if you make mistakes, it's so important to learn entrepreneurial skills now.
Yes, absolutely.
In the world, the way the world has changed, the only way that you're going to kind of find any kind of independence is to create something of your own, even if it's a grind on the side.
Yeah.
But I think you serve as a great example of someone that's going to have some success, and you're obviously influencing other kids and other people that grew up in the life. So again, we're going to say goodnight, but thank you so much for joining. Thank you for sharing everything. And, you have some really good fans here that are piping in and saying, well done. So, again, more power to you, and all the best, and talk to you again soon.
All right. And hopefully, we will do some other projects between me and you, and just keep the connection line going. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Okay. Good night.